Hey everybody, welcome back to Cool's Book Reviews. Because our book review at the beginning of the week was a shorter book, being that it was a graphic novel, I figured why not check out another small book, especially if we could tie it in with a piece of paleo art coming up later today. So in this episode, we are checking out Bigger Than T-Rex, the discovery of Giganotosaurus, the biggest meat-eating dinosaur ever found. Which is not to be confused with the Bigger Than T-Rex special talking about Spinosaurus. This one is written by Don Lessem with some great illustrations that really bring me back to my childhood. Obviously, this book was back from 1997, but if you guys were a kid growing up around Jurassic Park 3 time, in the early 2000s, there was a field guide that came out, and there was a lot of this artwork by Robert F. Walters within that Jurassic Park field guide. Up top we see the title, Bigger Than T-Rex, then a great picture of the Giganotosaurus right here. Now this is the classic coloration for Giganotosaurus within its early time of discovery. I'd say late 90s, early 2000s. It was all green with that subtle yellow underbelly and some spikes running along the back. Down below we see the discovery of Giganotosaurus, the biggest meat-eating dinosaur ever found. And then we see by Don Lessem, illustrated with photographs as well as paintings by Robert F. Walters. Like I said, some awesome paleo art, even if it is outdated, at least in today's understanding of Giganotosaurus. On the side we just see Lessem, Bigger Than T-Rex, and then crown. On the back it does kind of describe what we're going to read within this book. It is a extremely short book. Obviously this was meant for younger readers. Again, we see a continuation of the picture of the Giganotosaurus. We see Crown Publishers, Inc., New York. And then right there is your ISBN. So at the end of the day, this clocks in at a whole 30 pages. It is for younger readers, so it's not going to be like an extremely long book. But it was really the only Giganotosaurus book I had at this time. If we are flipping through, just see some different pictures, lots of art, lots of pictures. Actually a pretty nice representation of what was originally found with Giganotosaurus. And again, some more art. Here just a comparison of different dinosaur skulls. Got the classic American Museum of Natural History dinosaur hall here with that AMNH 5027 Tyrannosaurus, aka Rexy, right up front, as well as the Allosaurus in the back right there. Phil Curry, someone we've talked about before. Right there we got Rodolfo Correa. Obviously we've used him quite a few times within our channel in the pronunciation of Giganotosaurus. Here we see some more awesome pictures and just showing the discovery of Giganotosaurus. Just kind of tells you, like I said, the backstory. Here's the introduction showing T-Rex here, big old Tyrannosaurus. It's kind of a goofy looking jaw. It's probably just perspective, though I do like the green coloration with the red head. Though right here, something that could make some people mad, T-Rex the former king of the dinosaurs. Is it Giganotosaurus propaganda? Possibly. And again, a different picture of that Giganotosaurus here. Right here you see Giganotosaurus. Giganotosaurus. Since this book was written, we've learned a lot more about Giganotosaurus thanks to some related species, such as the recently discovered Meraxes gigas, which we did a video on. But it really lent some credence to some of the early theories, as well as maybe debunked some of the others. Now at the same time, we have found more specimens of other large meat-eaters, such as Tyrannosaurus rex. There's been more research done on like Scotty and Sue, showing that perhaps they did weigh more than at least the few specimens we have of Giganotosaurus currently. But at the same time, we do have quite a bit more specimens of Tyrannosaurus than we do with Giganotosaurus. So I guess the big question today is, does the title hold up with the current science or current consensus? And the answer is no, but yes. When we think of Bigger Than T-Rex, what are we talking about? Usually when we're talking animal and animal sizes, we discuss weight. Now, the largest of the tyrannosaurs, like I said, with Sue or Scotty, pushes close to 10 tons. Now, the few specimens we have of Giganotosaurus aren't quite that heavy, being that Giganotosaurus is lighter built. are we saying Giganotosaurus weight-wise could not get as big as a Tyrannosaurus? Well, no. Currently, like I said, we do only have a few specimens of Giganotosaurus, so it is more than possible that perhaps somewhere out there, there's a Sioux-sized Giganotosaurus. Now, at the same time, is Giganotosaurus longer than Tyrannosaurus? Well, it seems like they're kind of comparable, with perhaps Giganotosaurus only being slightly longer, as well as perhaps just slightly taller. Now, thanks to Meraxes, we do see that Giganotosaurus also has a longer skull than Tyrannosaurus, though Tyrannosaurus has a thicker skull. And luckily I have these two figures that are actually pretty closely sized together as far as in scale, just to kind of give you a idea of these two massive predators. Obviously, if they wanted to eat you, I don't think you would stop to say, hey, are you really the biggest? Given that when this was written, we didn't have all the recent findings that we do today to really give us a better idea or a better picture. You know, the Giganotosaurus family was still really kind of figuring out its place in the theropod family tree. And so the estimations weren't always 100% on, given that, you know, we were basing off a little bit different predators such as Allosaurus, whereas Giganotosaurus' body plan is slightly different. Obviously, when we look at a Giganotosaurus, you can see that it has a bigger head compared to its body than Allosaurus, as well as perhaps a little bit shorter of a neck. Now, something interesting when we looked at like Meraxes gigas, much like a few other dinosaur lineages, including obviously Tyrannosaurus, Meraxes' arms had actually been reduced quite significantly, and it kind of shows this evolution of bigger head, smaller arms. Obviously, if you got that big head, you really don't need gigantic arms. I mean, we see today a lot of different predators are using just their head for the process of catching and killing prey. Something I would also add here is I think a really good companion piece is the Beyond T-Rex documentary that we've previously reviewed, as it came out around the same time, but obviously goes in a little bit more depth. Again, like I said, this is for a younger audience, and so that one you get just a little bit more detail. Right here we see the lower jaw of a Giganotosaurus. You can see really just like that defining feature of that just really boxy lower jaw. As we go out, like I said, you got some beautiful pictures and just really some awesome details regarding the discovery. Here you got a picture of Carnotaurus, as it's kind of just describing, you know, Korea's different studies. Right here you got an awesome picture of the Giganotosaurus skull, and you can see just like how massive it truly is. Right here we got Philip Currie, who we've kind of talked about a few times, super famous in the paleontological field, and shows up in quite a few dinosaur documentaries, so I'm sure you've heard Currie's name before. And right here you got some other theropod skulls in comparison with the Giganotosaurus, just to kind of show you its size, but also to help you kind of see some similarities. Today, obviously, we know that Giganotosaurus is the closest related of these selected dinos to Giganotosaurus. Even though now we know a little bit more about the skulls and they do look a little bit different, you can at least see the similarities here. Allosaurus is another one that's distantly related to these two, and though this is an older skull, at least more of the classic Allosaurus skull I remember growing up, obviously. Now, again, we have more information, we know a little bit better about what Allosaurus' skull looks like. And then it shows two other South American theropods, Carnotaurus and Abelisaurus, both of which are Abelisaurs. And it was kind of weird because it kind of says Giganotosaurus has similarities to both those, which I kind of found odd. But obviously, at the time, they were just kind of learning and just trying to figure out what Giganotosaurus really was. Again, I love the art. It obviously now has some outdated aspects, including shrink wrapping, which you can see like the fenestra and all these different openings within the skull are just like right up to the bone, even the ribs there, which in a living animal you wouldn't expect to see unless they were like in really bad condition. Again, here's that picture of what they had found with the Giganotosaurus and kind of just showing how big it was compared to a person, which is really pretty cool. And then towards the end, we just get some other facts on some theropods. Right here, we got Megalosaurus, which obviously super famous for being one of the first named dinosaurs. Up top, again, Allosaurus, super famous dinosaur. Then you got Tyrannosaurus. Again, the king is dead. I mean, they're really hammering that in. Like, they are really trying to get this through. This definitely could be a propaganda piece for Giganotosaurus. Spinosaurus was mentioned very briefly at the beginning, and then here it is again. And here it does show it is longer, though they do say it is lighter than Giganotosaurus or even T-Rex. And what's kind of interesting is, though this was done quite a bit ago, back in 97, for the time, given like just how it looks, it's actually kind of a lot better, if I'm going to be honest, than a lot of Spinosauruses for that time, which were still kind of having that boxy head. Though now, obviously the cell perhaps too thin, and today now there's a guess that it might have gone more like an M-shaped cell with even shorter legs, though these legs aren't too bad because they definitely look different than the other theropods, and it does have that longer torso, and it has its telltale crest on the top of its skull, missing the distinctive like ray fin tail that we know today because of that recent discovery. Now what's kind of cool is, yeah, if you had that Jurassic World field guide, a lot of this art seems familiar, but these two, I don't remember being in that field guide. One of which is Saurophaganax, which has been featuring a lot on our channel as of late with the Allosaurus picture where we talked about Saurophaganax, as well as the vlog at the Sam Noble. It's truly a fascinating Allosaurid, and I hope to do a video on it again. And then there's Acrocanthosaurus, another theropod that's been featured quite often in our channel as of late, and just kind of cool to see him. Here we got Deinonychirus, which today looks even weirder, if that would make sense. Though I guess this looks really strange because we've gotten used to what Deinonychirus looks like thanks to those more complete skeletons. But at least this one just looks like a giant Gallimimus with a little bit bigger arms, instead of like this weird super predator that I will talk about in another book review. Today, with those recent discoveries, like I said, it looks even stranger. It has like a little hump on its back. And then there's Giganotosaurus. Pretty fascinating. Another lesser known theropod that's luckily gotten more attention as of late. Unfortunately, we did lose a large chunk of time studying it, much like Spinosaurus, because the fossils were lost in the Allied bombing of Berlin. Now this one is quite interesting, if I'm not going to lie. And this is kind of the one I really wanted to talk about. The Indian supergiants. And that being Bruhathgaeosaurus. Now Bruhathgaeosaurus is interesting today because it is likely a large sauropod, not a 60-foot long super predator. And I'm actually really glad that this was in this book, because growing up I had remembered, and I don't remember the book now, but there is a picture of a Tyrannosaur just being dwarfed by this giant theropod leg, and that's all they showed. For the longest time I couldn't figure out what it was, and then eventually digging into some of the lost sauropods, or kind of those ghost giants as I might call them, and digging more into Bruhathgaeosaurus, I realized, whoa, it's that one, where it was originally thought to be perhaps a very large theropod. And then there was some confusion. Could it just been some fossilized tree trunks or something like that? But as of 2022, there's some, I guess, slight consensus that at least the fossils were real, though because they are lost, we're not sure on their exact size, and so we're not really able to give a precise size estimate. But I just wanted to talk about that, and we'll have to go into that more in the history of it later, because it's just quite fascinating. But overall, yeah, it's just a little bit harder book to talk about because, like I said, it's for younger readers. There's not a whole lot of information in there, but I did enjoy it. Like I said, just looking back, especially at some of this like nostalgic art, and just how much knowledge we've gotten in this couple decades since this book was written, is truly fascinating. And so I don't know if I'm going to rate this one. I will say if it's for a younger reader, it's not a bad place to start for Giganotosaurus. And really, we do need more Giganotosaurus books. I think we got spoiled with that Acrocanthosaurus one by Kenneth Carpenter. So like I said, even though it's not perhaps the most up-to-date book, it is fascinating to at least kind of see where Giganotosaurus had started, because really, like this book says, there was really only two other books where Giganotosaurus was even mentioned by the time this one was made. This was almost its debut. But if you guys want to check out more Cool's book reviews, click that link to your left. If you want to see more of what we're doing here at Cool's Paranormal, click that link to your right. And don't forget to hit that like and give us a subscribe. And let us know, have you read this book? And is there a dinosaur you want us to talk about?